Hey guys, welcome to the YouTube channel. This is going to be part 2 of my 4AGE rebuild. First part was showing you how to install my crankshaft, the main bearings, and the main caps and things like that. The next step is to install the pistons. So this is going to be it here. I already started installing the pistons already, 1, 2, and 3. The fourth piston I'm videotaping. I kind of did it this way just because to make the video less shorter, and pretty much when you install one piston, it's pretty much the same process for all the pistons basically. So yeah, so that's what it looks like there. First thing you want to do is make sure you have everything in place here. When I was installing my fourth piston, unfortunately I snapped my second ring here, and that was just mainly because of my noob mistake. You really want to be careful installing these rings because they can snap easily. So I was rushing and it was hot, and then I ended up snapping it and kind of sucked. But I do have a spare ring set. I bought this one, NPR brand again. It was like 25 bucks shipped. So thankfully it wasn't expensive, but do learn from your mistakes and hopefully not repeat it again. So anyways, what you want to do is make sure you have your block prepared, it's all cleaned, and then you have a little bath of oil so you can kind of lubricate the moving parts here. Also, I have pre-lube assembly here, and then I have my piston. I also have my rings all laid out here. So this is the first ring, second ring, and then the oil rings here. And then you also want to make sure you have a piston ring compressor. I rented this one out on AutoZone for like 20 bucks, and then you just return it back and get your money back basically. And then I also have my carb cleaner kit for the brushes, just so I can clean these oil galleys in the rod of the piston there. And also I have a piston ring expander. This is the tool that's used to put the rings in. I don't think you can rent this out on AutoZone. You kind of have to buy this tool, but it's super cheap, and yeah, it does the job really. Only user error snaps rings, not the tool. And then also your rod bearing sets here too. I'm using the ACL race bearings here. It's the same brand that I did for the main bearings, and so this is what they look like basically. So you prepare everything out, and then that's pretty much it. I'll show you the process on how to install these rings and do that there. And also you want to double check the specs. My machine shop did check the specs before I started installing this, but I'm going to show you all how to do it too also, just so that if you want to save money or something, or it's a very custom build, you can check your specs yourself just to make sure you're doing it right. So yeah, and we'll go over here. Let me go ahead and just mount this on this side here. Hopefully this video will be helpful and no issues, I hope. I'm gonna move this a little bit back. If I need to kind of zoom in on things, I'll do that there for y'all. But yeah, we're just kind of going how it goes really. It's kind of like a journey basically. No editing or nothing with this video. I'm just gonna upload it raw basically. But yeah, so here we go. First thing you want to do is just clean your block here. I'm using like a lint-free rag. You really want to use lint-free rags, just because the lint can get dislodged and go into these oil galleys or your bearings and stuff, and the little minuscule clearance issues with the lint can cause major issues. So you do want to keep it clean, clean enough to where you can that you would eat on it basically. That's what I would say. Like, it's clean enough that you would put your food on top of this block or your parts and stuff. That's what I would say. So yeah, so just clean the block first, kind of prep it for the piston install here. Alright, so that is that there here. And then next thing you want to do is kind of install the rings now. So I'm going to install this ring here first. With these rings, like I said, the machine shop did check to make sure everything's within spec and everything, but with custom rings, if you're doing a high horsepower build, whatever build you're going to do, you want to double check or at least have the machine shop do it for you. But for the guys and girls that just want to do it themselves, I'll show you how to check piston ring clearance on here. So this is ring number 1. What I'm going to do here is soak it in oil here, and then I'm going to go put it in cylinder number 4 where it's going to go onto. So I kind of, put in oil here. I'm going to show y'all that there's a way to do this here too with the markings here. So let me see if I can get this in focus, but here there's like a little end mark. I don't know if you can see it, but you want to take a note of these because these rings are marked top and bottom. So the end mark here on this ring means that it's the top part. So this should be facing upward. You don't want to do it upside down or anything like that. So you still want to make sure that orientations are all correct. So there we go. And then what I'm going to do here next is kind of put a little bit oil on the cylinder walls here too. Just because you do anything that metal to metal contact that's going to be moving, you do want to lube pretty well, just because you don't want to scratch it up or anything. So let me see if y'all have good coverage here. Yep. All right, cool. So y'all have good coverage. All right, sweet. So what I'm going to do here is kind of put the ring like 90 degrees on the cylinder wall, and then I'm going to go flip it or push it into the wall. So 90 degrees, and then kind of turn it like so, and it goes in nicely. So that's that, and then I'm going to use my piston to kind of push it down. On the factory service manual on the 4AG, it says to go push the ring down like 3.4 inches, which is basically this whole piston going down the block basically, and then measure the clearance there. What I'm doing is just kind of lubing up the piston, just because, like I said, metal to metal contact is going to be moving, so you want to make sure you don't scratch up anything. So the ring's inside. I'm going to go push this down like so here, and there we go. So it's roughly about 3 inches there here, give or take. You don't have to be super exact with a mostly like stock build, but if you are going to be doing something very precise, high horsepower type of stuff, boost even, I think you might want to be a little bit more accurate, but you can always pay the machine shop to do that to kind of avoid that hassle. But yeah, if you want to save some money and do it yourself, this is how you do it. Alright, so next thing you want is some feeler gauges. I got these on Amazon a while back when I was building my first 4AG. You definitely want feeler gauges when you are building a motor and trying to find things to spec. And I have it here on my piece of paper here on the specs that it's supposed to be here for the rings. Let's see here if I can find it. Oh no, I don't think I have it here. Let me just check here. I know I had it here somewhere. I had a little marking of it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so here's a little piece of paper that I used here, or the little thing where I wrote it down already for y'all. So the ring gap clearance for like ring number 1, which I put in right there, the most top ring, is 0.25 to 0.47 millimeters. So I'm gonna move this camera over here just so you can kind of see better how I check for that gap there. So let me just move this over here. Yeah, I'm trying to give you all like a really good view here to where hopefully y'all can hopefully understand this better and deal with that here. So here we go. I'm gonna put this down here like so. Okay, so that's cylinder number 4 there. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So the piston ring, you can tell, is down in here. I pushed it down with the piston there, and there's like a little gap here where you will measure that gap. So these are the feeler gauges. I am going to go to, let's see here, the smallest setting is 0.25. So I'm going to go to 0.25 millimeters. So this is the 0.25 millimeter on the feeler gauge there. And basically what you're going to do is put the feeler gauge between that gap. And if it goes to that gap, that means it's clear. And then you kind of kind of go higher after that to see what's the exact clearance on here. So what I'm going to do here is move it like right here, and there's a little piston ring here that you can see the gap on, and you just basically just slide it in that little gap here, and it slides in smoothly. So yeah, that's good there. Okay, and then maybe I should switch it to the other side there just so I can show y'all better. Or can you guys see that better? Yeah, so it goes like this here, where you can kind of see the piston ring gap here. There you go. There you go. So it fits in nicely between that gap there. So it's 0.25. Now I'm going to go a little bit bigger here with my feeler gauge. Let's go up to 0.30 millimeters here. This is 0.30 millimeters. And you notice like this is also kind of lube because like I said, you want to make sure that if you touch anything metal to metal, that it doesn't scratch against the surface here. So yeah, so it's 0.30. I think it's gonna be a little bit. Let's see here. And if the ring gap is too big, that's a big issue because I know that's what causes blow by too, or smoke in the exhaust, is because basically oil is escaping from the combustion chamber and going into the exhaust and causing that smoke. So 0.40, that's a bit too big. It doesn't want to go in nicely. Kind of catches on the ring. So looks like 0.38 is my gap clearance, which is well within spec. And I know on the factory service manual, it said that if it's greater than 1 millimeter clearance actually, then it's too big of a gap clearance. And that's what I had the issue with this motor was when I tore down this motor, it was smoking pretty bad. And I checked the ring clearance, the gap ring clearance on the original rings, and it was over 1 millimeter big basically. That space was 1 millimeter big. So that's why I was getting a lot of exhaust smoke, or a lot of smoke from the exhaust, because all the oil is escaping from the combustion, or from the combustion part and going into the exhaust, causing that big smoke. The ring's job is basically to prevent, it's supposed to lubricate the cylinder walls, but the oil is not supposed to escape out of the pistons here, and then when you have the spark and the firing, oil gets in and you have that smoke coming out of the exhaust. That's what the rings are supposed to prevent. It's supposed to lubricate it, but lubricate it enough to where oil doesn't escape in the combustion phase, and then you get that white smoke that looks like a steam locomotive type of thing going on here. So if you're blowing a lot of smoke, most likely sometimes the case is because of your rings are bad, oil is escaping through the combustion phase and going and being burnt out basically. So if you're using a lot of oil consumption plus you see smoke in your exhaust, most likely your rings are bad. So you probably need to tear down your whole motor just to get to the rings. So this is ring number 1, so that's within spec. So I'm going to just flip this up like this here and pull it out like that there. So that's within spec. Now what we're going to do is ring number 2 here. So I'm going to show you all how I do ring number 2 here too. Also here, let me get a piece of knife here. I'm going to use I'm going to just use little scissors here to kind of cut this open, and then do that right here. And you do this for all the rings, second ring and oil ring too. You want to make sure that you're doing it right here. So I'm going to get one of the rings. Like I said, unfortunately I was rushing, and yeah, unfortunately that's what happens when you try rushing things. It doesn't go according to plan and you snap rings. So yeah, but these are all within spec. And again, you can kind of tell, like there's a marking here, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a marking here that says 2N, so that's basically saying this is the top part of the ring, and then the bottom part of the ring has no marking. So just be aware on how you use it, okay? Or how you install it, basically. So what I'm going to do here is the same process again. I'm going to lube up the ring. So I have my little oil bath here. Just leave this up here really good. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do this here again. So I'm gonna slide this in 90 degrees and do like this here. And I already lubed up the oil, the cylinder wall on ring number 1 when I was installing it. And so you can kind of see the gap there. So you can kind of measure that gap with that feeler gauge. You're supposed to, bring it down 3 inches, but since it's kind of up, it might be easier for y'all to kind of get a better idea on how to install or check the gap clearance. So let's go to like 0.25 again here for the install here. So this is 0.25 millimeter clearance, and basically you just do like this here, and then it fits in nicely, no issue. So that's what you do 3 inches down below, but I just did it up here just so you can kind of see how you do it. Okay, and then you kind of go bigger feeler gauges till this gauge doesn't want to go in the ring smoothly. Okay, you just kind of lightly do it. Don't want to force things in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this ring down. I'll show you how to do that here. So it's gonna go down like this here, and I push it down 3.4 inches basically. So just like this, like so. And this is like 3 inches roughly, then another ½ an inch is like this. There you go. Oh, whoops, there we go. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do this part here too. All right, so I'm gonna do 0.28 here, millimeter clearance. I'm gonna go do for that gap there again here. Okay, so, all right, so let's do 25 here. Let's see here. So it's a little bit tight, so this one might be a little bit tighter now. So we'll just see here. We'll do 0.25 here. 0.23, 0.28. Ooh, where's 25 now? Let's just see this here. All right. Oh, here we go. All right. So I'm just gonna try finding my 0.25 here. 20, 29, 23, 25. Okay. Here we go. So 0.25. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and check the gap clearance again here. Let's just make this a little bit better here. This side here, too, here. Okay, here. Move this a little bit to the side there, here, too, here. Okay. Okay, so 0.25 fits nicely here. Okay. 0.25. Alright, so it might be pretty tight. So it might be 0.25 as a gap clearance versus 0.28, which is 0.03 difference. Oh no, if it's okay, sweet. Okay, but barely. So I'm going to say 0.28 is the gap clearance on this one here. So all within spec still. So that's good. And now you gotta do the oil rings here too next. So we'll pull this out here. And so that's how you do it there. So I'm gonna move this camera back again, and then I'm gonna check the oil rings on here too here, just to show you all the clearance there here. So yeah. So that's kind of like up close and personal type of deal here. I'm gonna go ahead and move this back here. There we go, so you guys can see better. And then yeah, do that there here. So like I said, if your machine shop already checked the clearances on your block and everything, and your block is technically up to spec, like it's not out of round, it's not too big or too small, installing these rings should go in real easy without grinding or anything like that. It's a lot easier to do when you have a build basically. More custom builds you might have, like especially if you're bored out and things like that, like bigger pistons, like wider pistons, or for boost applications, it's going to be a little bit more extra work per se, because sometimes these rings you get might not be to spec that you want it to for your application, and you're gonna have to do some custom grinding and stuff like that there. So yeah, that's pretty much it there here. So what I'm gonna do here is do this here, like that, and then I'm gonna check again the gap clearance for the oil ring. And the gap clearance for the oil ring, let me just see the spec here, it's 0.15. Okay, so it's a little bit tighter clearance. It's 0.15 to 0.52. So you have a big range there for the gap of the oil rings. So Toyota made the gap clearances for the rings very loose, very wide and broad. So that's a good thing. It means that it takes a really long time for the wear to really start showing issues on the 4AG. So that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm just measuring the oil ring right now here with the feeler gauge. Okay, so it's 0.02. Oh no, hold on here. Where is it here? I kind of got a really big feeler gauge here, so 0.25 here. Let's see here. 0.25. All right. Let's do 0.30 here, or 33 here. Okay. So I'm just using feeler gauges and putting them on the gap here, so it's a little bit too big. So 0.30 is the ring gap clearance here too, so it's still within spec. Okay, and there's two. Let me show you like the ring oil rings here. Basically, let me show you here. So here's the rings here. The oil rings don't have any marking indicating which is top or bottom for the rings, which is okay, which is good. But you do have this one bottom ring, you have like this expander ring, and then you have the top ring that goes on top here too. So that's how the oil ring kind of goes with the anatomy there. But yeah, I'll show you how to install those too. But I'm still, double checking the rings. The expander ring, you don't check the gap clearance on that. It's just the oil rings itself, not the expander rings here. So yeah, just make sure that you lube these guys up pretty well. This here, and then this. Okay, and then there you go. All right, and I'm gonna do the feeler gauges again here. If I knew where I put it. Where did I put the feeler gauges here? I know I had it here somewhere. Here it is. So I'm gonna do a 0.25 again here, millimeters. I'm doing metric. You can do inches if you want to, or the standard. I like metric just because it's a lot easier to convert things technically from millimeters to centimeters and things like that. But yeah, it's up to y'all. So I'm going to start with 0.20. Okay, so that fits in nicely. Usually if there's like a bigger gap, I kind of make it bigger. I do like 30. So I do like 0.20 millimeters and I go up to 30 millimeters. And if it's still kind of almost touching there, then I kind of, go slower there or something like that. So yeah, let me see here. So let's just put this one up here. 0.38 here. Okay, here. So still checking these feeler gauges to come out. Kind of gets a little bit harder to take these gauges out once it's like super oily and stuff. But you kind of want to lube them up pretty good though. So I'll do like 0.25 here. Let's just do 0.25. Okay, so 0.25. Okay, so it's still got a little gap there. Okay, so let's do 0.38 just for the hell of it. And if that's too big, then I'm going to have to oh, perfect. 0.35. Nice, okay. Alright, so 0.35. Alright, so all within spec still. Alright, so you measured your rings. If the machine shop did it already, no need for that, but if you did, that's how you do it. And everything's all in spec. Like I said, if the ring gap is too wide or too big, you will probably have issues with excessive oil consumption, because all the oil is escaping from the rings and going into the combustion chamber of the phase, or the combustion phase. And once that happens, oil gets burnt up, turns into white smoke, and then pushed out into the exhaust, which is not normal. So just FYI, if it's too tight, I'm really not so sure. I kind of forgot if the rings are too tight, but I think if the rings expanded, it's too tight, you can actually snap the rings and cause ring damage too, just because heat expands, the rings will expand, and if the clearance is too tight already, then they're going to start hitting on each other and cause scoring and issues. So yeah, everything has to be within spec to whatever build that you're doing. And what I'm going to also do is just make sure, since I snapped ring number 2 here, I'm going to make sure that the thickness of the ring is the same as this thickness of the ring. So what I'm going to use here is my little micrometer. This is actually a Harbor Freight special micrometer, so it's nothing fancy on this one. I think this type of micrometer would be fine for its purpose. So yeah, so I had zeroed this out, and let's just see here. This is 1.45. Technically it's supposed to be like 1.5 thick, so give or take 1.46. So let's just see here on this guy here, 1.45, 1.46. Okay, so they're exactly the same thickness, so that's a good thing. You always want to double check again, just because, like, you know, you order parts from eBay, whatever, or Rock Auto, and they give you the wrong part number or the wrong stuff. So just always make sure you double check on those too. Alright, so when installing this ring, there's a process here on how to install it. They show you on the manual, like, ring gap goes here and all that. So let me just pull that out real quickly, just to make sure I'm installing the rings properly, and then I'll show you all how to install these rings on the piston here. So I'm gonna, luckily, thank God for Wi-Fi and everything else, I can just check real quickly. Let's see here. I'm going to just Google up SQ Engineering 4AGE manual. The SQ Engineering site actually has the manual that you can download online here. I actually have the manual on my laptop here, but this laptop is super hella slow, and unfortunately I didn't think about it till now. But yeah. Anyways, I'm actually downloading or opening up the site right now, just so I can double check and make sure. I kind of remember, or I'm pretty sure I know how to do the orientations on this one, but just to be on the safe side, I'm just doing it just because I want to make sure 100% that I'm doing it right. And then that's pretty much it here. We're almost done, I'd say here. But yeah, joys of doing this live, right? Like, you kind of forget to do other things, like prep your ring orientation, how it's supposed to go. So yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. And this is my old ring, by the way, so I did check the ring gap clearance on this, and it was over 1 millimeter spacing, or thick. So that explains why I was smoking like a chimney on this motor when I first got this motor installed. So yeah, but thankfully it was just rings that was the issue. And while the motor's torn down, I decided to upgrade the bearings to race bearings, and also kind of reinforce the bottom end a little bit with ARP main studs and ARP rod bolts. You can use factory bolts too, but for me I did ARP just because it's stronger, and for my application I just wanted a relatively stock motor that can take the abuse of the track for a very long time. So I kind of upgraded the hardware a tiny bit for that. Nothing for power and things like that. In my opinion, I feel like it's better to, I guess, overbuild the motor for the application versus just barely hanging on, you know. So you win races because you don't have mechanical issues. So that's what I always say. You might be the fastest car out there, the most high horsepower, but like if your car keeps on breaking down, you're not winning any races. You're just wasting your money, in my opinion. But each to their own, though. Alright, so let's see here. I have the website here. Let's just see how they orient the rings here. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm on the SQ Engineering website. I downloaded the manual for the 4AG small port. Alright, sweet. So let me show you here how to install the rings here. If you can see here, maybe you can, I don't know, but I'm on the SQ Engineering website and they show you how to install the piston rings here. So again, like I said, you cannot like just install these rings willy-nilly and call it a day. You gotta really understand the markings and everything else on it. So yeah, so what I do here is install the rings here. I'm gonna show you how I do it here too. So it says first, you always wanna start from the bottom to the top basically. So install the side rail lower first. So I'm gonna do that here. And I'm gonna show y'all here how to do this here. Alright, so I got my piston ring orientation right, where the dots, you know, this is indicating the front here. So front, and then the lower side rail goes here. With these NPR rings, definitely, or any aftermarket rings or any rings, you want to look up how they tell you how to install the rings too. The factory service manual kind of shows you orientation, but I guess the aftermarket, you know, rings that you use, whatever it is, they'll kind of show you how to install these rings correctly. So with the oil ring, you want to do the expander ring first. It makes it a lot easier to install the rings afterwards. So with the expander ring, the gap says it's supposed to go over here. So I'm putting the gap on the top left side facing forward here. So the left side of the ring of the piston is facing it here. So let me just show you, but the ring gap should be on this orientation here. So what I'm going to do here is kind of soak this in oil. Again, like I said, you want to make sure that you do coat your metals, that it's going to be touching each other and rubbing in oil here. So yeah. Okay, so here we go. The ring expander here, and you can see also there's like a little, the ring does expand on this side, so you can see, okay, that's the gap there. So that's where you want to install the ring expander. And you install the oil rings by hand. No need for the actual ring expanding tool. So I'm putting on the bottom part of the groove here, the most bottom part here, the third part of the groove, and I put the ring gap where this part is at here. So I'm hoping you guys can see. I am not going to edit this just because it's a pain to edit. So yeah. And then in my phone goes to lock mode. Okay, so I did the ring expander here on this side, and now I'm going to do the lower side rail, which is the most bottom part of the oil ring. The ring gap will go onto the back side here, back left side basically. And like I said, it's the ring, then ring expander, then ring again for the oil ring installation. So I'm going to soak this up in oil again. Again, you want to make sure you can never have too much lube, so you always want to make sure you lube it up pretty well. Alright, so then the ring gap on this guy goes over here, so I'm going to put the ring at the bottom. Make sure that the ring touches the bottom part below, goes below the expander ring here. So it kind of gets a little bit tricky here, but we can make this work though. So and you do this after installing or checking and making sure that you know, the gap's all correct. So yeah. All right, so I put the most bottom ring below the expander here. and then you just kind of put this in by hand here. Just by hand, don't want to forcefully do it here. Okay, so there we go. So it's all put in here. There we go. Sweet. And then next up is the ring expander on this side here. Let's just see here. Oops. Okay. Let me just get this going here. Shit. Let me see if I can do my face recognition here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so then upper rail goes on this side here too. So now again, the ring expander goes on the right side of the piston now here. So the ring expander, or sorry, the upper side rail goes on top of the ring expander now. So the gap, again, place it right here. And then put this on top here, like so here. Let's just move this around like so, just so I can kind of see it better. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see it, but it goes in like so here. And this is all going on the most bottom groove here. So, and I'm doing this all by hand for the oil ring part here. So, oil ring part you do by hand. Okay, so let me show you here. I want to be very, very thorough for anybody that's trying to do this here. So again, there's markings here to orient, which is, you know, facing the front part of the motor and the back part. And then looking at the factory service manual, it shows you where to put the gaps. So the expander gap goes here, the lower ring gap goes here, and then the upper ring gap goes here. And this is just for the oil ring. So like I said, it goes ring, expander, ring. And then you have these two other grooves, which will be like the second ring and then the first ring there. So those are the ones you're gonna have to use the ring expander on. And you have to be very, very careful with it, because that's how I snapped my ring, because I put too much force on it and it completely snapped. These rings, the first and second rings, are a lot more harder. Like, they feel a lot harder. They're not malleable or bendable like the oil ring is. So yeah, and you can tell my hand's hella oily, but you can I don't like working with gloves and putting these rings on because my hands get even more sweaty. Alright, so I installed this already. Now we're going to do like the second ring number 2 here. So ring number 2 goes over here, the right back side of the piston here. So what I'm going to do here is prep my ring here, and this is the one where you want to make sure you orient the marking of the rings to the top. So the marking on the NPR rings, it says N, so that's indicating, you know, to face top. Like I said, you want to make sure these markings are done, you know, you see these markings, you notice these markings, and you install the marking orientations right. So basically, I see the N mark. I'm going to install it where the M's pointing to the top, basically. And I got my ring expander here and my rings here. Alright, so do this here. Just gonna lightly kind of give it some tension here, so that's it. Get my piston here, and it's supposed to go on the back right part of the piston here, where the gap goes. So the gap goes there, and gently do it, because too much force will cause the ring to snap. And you can tell it's kind of tricky. Like, I'm already kind of traumatized already from when I snapped my rings. So I'm trying to be very, very gentle on it, and hopefully not mess up anything. And always double check the orientation of the rings, like I said, that the marking for top is facing top and the marking for bottom is facing bottom. And usually the bottom rings, oh gosh. Whew. Joys of doing this live, right? Like, you're always gonna run into issues. But I'm doing this for y'all and for me. So hopefully I'll inspire some of y'all to do your own work on your motor and stuff. And you know, learn something with your car. And hopefully y'all be out there in the track too, because, you know, building your motor and upgrading and souping it up is only half the fun. You really in my opinion, you want to get out there and go racing and go track days and all that good mess. So that's the most fun part to me, is enjoying your fruits of your labor here. Jeez, so hard. Oil rings are real easy to install because you can install it by hand, but you can't install these rings by hand at all here. These are very, very tricky to do here. So again, I'm going to just install this here like so here. Okay, woo, okay, so that's good. Okay, so I'm going to go do ring groove number 2 here. Okay. Okay. Woo! Got it in, yay. Okay. Alright, so again, I'm going to just double check my orientation here. And then, alright, so number 2 here. This is, okay, cool. Alright, so I'll do a close up here for you again also. Basically, I use the ring expander to kind of open up the ring to where I can slide it down to the piston. And it's on, the groove here, number 2 here. And again, the orientation's right where you have the ring gap here, and this dot indicates front. So again, double check. And I also have the end marking facing top, indicating this is the top part of the ring versus bottom. So again, double check and make sure. Okay. And then ring number 1, last but not least, right, is ring number 1. So let's open this up again just so I remember which one it is. And my iPhone's hella oily now, but it's all good. So ring number 1 goes on to the top left now. So we're going to the top left. So up here. Yes, it is. Yes. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get ring number 1 now. All right, move it up real good. See where the end marking is at for this guy. Okay, so end marking is there. Alrighty, sweet. All right, and this one goes on the top left side here. All right, so the gap goes there here, and just kind of slide this in to the first groove here, or the most top groove, basically. And that is it there. Yay! All right, so that's how you install the rings. Not too terribly hard. Just be very gentle and careful when you install, especially the first and second rings. You can snap them like what I did. To be on the safe side, if you're kind of worried, just get extra spares just in case, because I have extra spares now. Next is the installation of the rod bearings. With this one, again, I have ARP rod bolts. The machine shop did check that my basically the circle or diameter is still within spec of the factory service manual. The reason being is that's what ARP recommends too, because ARP has a more increased clamping force than stock. So what happens is the circle or the diameter can be, I guess, twisted or be out of spec. So you use a machine shop to check for that. For me, I would definitely recommend, if you're installing ARP rod bolts or any bolts, really ARP rod bolts or main bolts, to check the circumference of the block, or of the the main bearings, and also the rod bearings. Basically, you want to make sure that's all within spec, because what they'll do, if it's not, they'll kind of like line bore it, where they will basically bring it back to spec with the ARP studs. OEM studs, there's no need for that because it is OEM spec, but ARP bolts is definitely recommended. You don't necessarily have to do it, but they say it's highly recommended basically, and it's worth the money to pay for it, in my opinion, because you're probably building a high horsepower motor with ARP bolts, and last thing you want to do is put on the dyno. Next thing you know, the motor blows up because you put bolts and you didn't check the spec of the roundness of it. So yeah, so what I'm doing right now is just gonna pull this guy out here, Okay, so this is the rod caps, basically, the ARP bolts, the machine shop. Like again, pressed them in and made sure I'm still within spec with this ARP bolts here. Yeah, that's pretty much it there on that part. If you guys want to do OEM, go by all means, but if you're planning to track this or put this on a lot of abuse, I definitely say ARP bolts is the way to go. I actually had ARP bolts on my M3 also. I have ARP main bolts and rod bolts on my M3, and I tracked that for like 5 years or so. Lots of miles on it and no issues. So definitely a firm believer in ARP here. So what I'm doing now, I should probably just get a better cleaner rag here now. I'm gonna use this guy here, this is better. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is just clean the caps here. Again, like I said, you wanna make sure no debris and stuff like that is in there. You might not see it, but those little microscopic debris or lint that can get into here will cause issues in later on when you're tuning your car or driving it. So you want to make sure it's like I said, clean enough for you to eat on it, basically. So that's that there here. And then let's see here. I'm going to clean off this one here too. And you can tell like there's some dirt already on it, so it's decently clean, but you're still going to get some residue and other stuff on here too. So yeah, you want to make sure that's all good there here. Okay. Alright, so that's that there here, and then what I'm going to do here is kind of clean this off here too with oil galleys here. I always clean the oil galleys on the rods or any oil galleys really, just because you never know if there's a debris that gets stuck in there. The machine shop does clean it, but and the hot tank here with hot water and all that good mess, but you want to make sure that it's still 100% clean. So with the rod bolts, or rod caps I mean, the rod bearings, there's these holes here for the oil galley. The only one that you have to mainly worry about is the one that goes on the rod here, because the rod has the oil galley holes, so you want to align that perfectly to it. The rod cap doesn't have any holes, so you don't have to worry about this hole aligning anywhere. But they do have these markings here where, I'm going to go a bit closer here, where let's see here if y'all can see it, where y'all can see this little cap here, this little square hole. This one right here indicates you should align it like that. You don't align it the other way, because this one, there's no markings here or anything like that. So there's always these orientation. If it doesn't go in smoothly, you're probably doing it wrong. So that's another general point here. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is clean my rod bearings here too with a brake cleaner again. Make sure that it's all nice and clean. They're probably already clean when you pull them out from the box, but like I said, always make sure that it never hurts to double check, So I'm gonna go put this rod cap or rod bearing onto the rod cap here and correctly align it here. So I'm just going to push this guy in here. There we go. Okay, nice and snug. It's good. Alright, so you can see here hopefully how it looks like. But yeah, the marking for the bearing kind of matches the marking for the cap here too. So there's no way you can mess it up technically, but you'll be surprised. And yeah, it's nice and flush there. So that's with the rod bearing here. And this one again, I'm going to go clean this again with brake cleaner. And then just clean my rod bearings again. These are ACL ACL race bearings. They're more tougher than the stock bearings. I did use stock bearings on my first 4AG build, and I think it did pretty well, but with my years of tracking and racing and stuff, I kind of figured now with the second motor I should probably maybe upgrade some parts just for better longevity, better abuse taking. Hopefully this will last me many seasons. I do love racing, and hopefully I can do it for a long time. So basically, you put like I said, this is the part that matters the most, is aligning the main bearing, the rod bearing to the rod itself here too. So again, there's markings on the rod where you're supposed to align the bearing onto it. So which I did here. Let me give you a close-up view. Hopefully you guys will see it. So I pushed the bearing down in here, and there is a little hole here for the oil galley, and the bearing itself has a hole. So you want to make sure that hole aligns with that hole. If you flip it the wrong way, that's very bad because there's no lubrication coming into the bearings. So if it feels like it's going in the wrong way, don't force it in, okay? And then again, there's that little square marking here that aligns up with the marking, or the square marking for the bearing. So it lines up perfectly, and it's nice and smooth and even there. So that's that there. Next is putting the piston into the crank. We're almost there with the home stretch, so we're pretty good there here. What I'm gonna do here is basically, first I'm gonna put these little protectors on here. These are just plastic tubes that fit over the rod bolts here. You definitely wanna do that. So you might get away with not doing it, but you have the high chance when you put this in, these rod bolts could scratch up the crank, and if it scratches up the crank, you're pretty much screwed. You're gonna need a new crank. So you better be safe than sorry. So I'm putting these little covers on here just for that reason. And what I'm gonna do here is flip this block upside down. I'm gonna go and do that right now here. All right, nice and slowly, nice and slow, there we go. All right, so let me just put this line up there here next. All right, what I want to do here now is clean this crankshaft. It's already clean, but like I said, I want to make sure 100% throughout the process that I am not causing any contamination, things like that there here. So yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do here again, brake cleaner. Spray it onto this little lint-free rag I got, and clean the crankshaft. So this is where the rod bearings go on the crankshaft here. All right, it's nice and clean here, just like that. And I'm going to show you the position of the crank. I would say the position of the crank is at the very most bottom. So when you push this piston in, you're going to push it in down further below here. So let me just show you that position here. I'm just going to clean this up really good. So this is hella clean. All right, rod bearings are all clean and everything here. All right, so let me just move this out here first for you so you all can see here. All right, so again, this is all installed, and you can tell this is the one I'm installing right here, that the rod crank, I guess you can say, on the crankshaft is at the most bottom part of the motor here. You don't want to install it when it's too high, because you can risk with the rod bolts here scratching this up, or on the side of the cylinder walls too. So this is how I install it. It's the most safest and easiest way. So that's all clean. Next thing I'm going to do here is use the piston ring compressor that I rented from AutoZone. Alright, so I'm going to flip this upside down again here since I cleaned up the crank there. So we're good. Again here. Put this little lock on here again. Alright, so everything's all prepared. I'm going to do one more final wipe down, just because I am paranoid like that. Once you're already here, you might as well do it right the first time, right? Not take it apart after tuning it or racing it for one session, you know? Okay, so we're all good there here. All right, lube up the cylinder wall again here. All right, so I'm just lubing this this up here. Crank is all cleaned up. Okay. And put a lot of lube just because you can never have too much lube, as I always say. And do this here. Okay. So this is the final step almost. Alright, so you already put the bearings in, you already oriented the rings correctly. Now you got to put this ring compressor onto here. Now with this one, you basically just kind of loosen it up here first so you can fit the piston in the ring here. So I'm loosening it up right now. There we go. And I think that's pretty good enough here. And there's an orientation here. So you want to put this part, the flat part here, at the bottom. You don't want to flip this upside down because it's actually harder to put this, the piston in. That's what I noticed when I first did my first 4AG rebuild. So make sure that when you rent the AutoZone ring compressor, that this flat part here faces down, and the one with this little indentation to adjust the ring points up. So just FYI, I'm going to just make this a little bit wider here. There we go. I think that's perfect. And then I'm going to lube up the sides of the rings of the ring compressor here too. Again, you can never have too much lube. You want to avoid, you know, scratching or breaking things if you can. So yeah. All right. So next up is putting this compressor onto the ring. All right. So this is the kind of the tricky part, at least for me. So putting this on here, and when you put it in, you want to make sure you leave some space here, like right here, because it makes it easy for you to align the piston onto the block too. All right, so it's in here. Now I'm going to hold this in and crank it here with my piston ring tool here. So I'm going to just basically, it's going to cinch up the piston in the ring here. You try hopefully not to move the ring as much as you can. You know, first time is probably going to be hard. There's probably other piston ring compressor tools that makes it a lot easier. But this is the AutoZone one. Again, it's up to you on what ring compressor you want. It makes it easy. But basically, I cinched it up pretty good here. I cinched it up here, so let me show you how it looks like. So this is what it is. This is what it looks like when you basically compress it all. And I did hand tight. I didn't do super duper hard, just enough to where it just tight enough where I can't move it anymore by hand. So that's what it is, and that's good enough already. So and everything's all lubed up, and I'm gonna go ahead and show y'all how to do it. Again, there are markings here on the piston where you want to mark it correctly. So the dot on the piston itself is facing forward, so that goes forward here. So I'm going to go just align this here, like so here, very gently put this in here. Okay, and I'm going to move this GoPro here for you so at least y'all can see here. And then take it from there. My GoPro is about to die, so hopefully y'all will see this before it dies, and then that's almost pretty much it. Alright, so let's put this up here. Oh god, did it die? It died. Oh, did it die? No, no. Woo, it did not die. Okay. Alright. So there we go. It's like an hour already into this. And so this is pretty much going to be 4 hours right there. So imagine if I did the whole video, right? Okay, so it's all lined up properly. Like I said, the this part right here, you can see at the bottom, kind of just lines up like that there. And again, the orientation is facing right, or the correct way basically. And then I get the bottom of this hammer here. I kind of just do this here, tap it on the sides here, make it nice and snug. And now what I'm going to do here is just push down the piston ring here. So here we go. I'm going to just push down on here. And that's it. It's in. So when you push this down, it should go in smoothly. If you feel like it stops all of a sudden, like it's hard and you're doing this and it's not moving anymore, don't force it in. You probably one of the ring popped out of here and you got to redo the whole process again. So if it feels very hard to push in, don't force it in. That's how you break it. So It's in, thankfully, and now I'm just gonna push this in all the way to the bottom. Okay. And then next up here is turn this around. And what I forgot to do, just realizing it now, is to put engine lube. So thankfully, you can still do engine lube here. So what I'm gonna do here is do that right now, is put assembly lube on the bottom of the piston here, the rod bearing. So I forgot to do that, unfortunately. So I'm gonna do this here on this side here, and put a little bit of lube on here to here, if I can get this open here. There we go here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is just put engine lube on here, just around it, and then I'm gonna just put a little bit of engine lube on this side here too here. So yeah, there you go. Okay, sweet. All right, haha. So the engine lube is actually gonna go around it and go on the bearing cap here too itself. So yeah, I forgot to do that, unfortunately. So learn from my mistake. Just put the lube on first before anything else. Okay. Okay, here. So yeah, let me just put some lube on there. Okay, lots of lube. All right. Now I'm gonna go push this on top again here. Yes. Okay, sweet. Died just like that. All right, see? Filming live. No editing, just live. All right, so you pushed it up and everything. Now it's all lubed up. Next is to put the rod, the top part, or the rod cap now. So there's orientations here. So you have this little hump here for the 4AG cap here. So this indicates the back side, which is the rear part of the motor. This little hump here indicates the front part of the motor. So when you install this, make sure you got the correct orientation too, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is that this front part is gonna face this way, okay? Again, always double check, make sure. And then put some engine lube on here. I put a gob full of it just because, again, can never have too much lube, and that would be good to have. All right, so I'm gonna put the marking that says front here, basically pointing front here. So I did that here. And then now you just torque this to spec here. With ARP, it recommends using their ARP Assembly Lubricant, which I'm gonna use, and do that right now here. So I have this assembly lubricant here. Okay, so I'm gonna put this like on top of here basically. Also onto the nuts here too. Okay, so these are the rod caps here too also here. Just gonna you know, definitely be liberal with this stuff here. There we go. And then there we go here too with this guy here. All right. Just again, more of this stuff. Awesome. All right. And then let's put this one like so here. All right, so the manufacturer on this one is 40 pounds from, according to the ARP website. It's supposed to be 40 foot torque here. So I'm going to torque it to 40 foot-pounds. But I'm gonna do like in a sequence where I'll do, I'll hand tighten it first, then I torque it to 20, then to 40. So what I'm gonna do is use my good old ratchet here and use this guy here. All right, so I guess you guys can see that here pretty good. Yes, you can. All right. Yes, you can. Sweet. So I'm gonna go ahead. This uses a 1/2 inch size bolt here, or socket basically. So I'm just gonna turn this by hand. Okay, a little bit snug there. All right, sweet. Turn this by hand too here. A little bit snug here too, I think. Yep, snug. All right, so snug here, snug, snug. All right, sweet. All right, So next I'm going to do is use my Tecton torque wrench. Again, 40 foot-pound. This is going to do 20 foot-pounds first, and then I'll do 40 foot-pounds for the last setting here. So this is 20 foot-pounds here. All right, so this one, again, you want to do like one clean swoop, again, till it clicks, like that. Okay, none of this, then click. So again, one clean swoop. There you go. All right, now this is gonna be 40 foot-pounds now next. So I'm gonna do 40 foot-pounds here. Gonna get it to 40 here. So this is 40 foot-pounds here. And then go like this here. There you go. One clean swoop here. Like I said, you want to do one clean swoop. There you go. All right. Double check again. There you go. And then one last time here. There you go. All right, sweet. We are 40 foot-pounds. So next is you want to make sure everything moves freely. So what I'm going to do here is flip this. Well, I can do like this here first, just to show you how it looks like on the underside. So you just turn it around. Everything seems to be going nicely, no issues. Sweet. All right. And then I'm gonna flip this upside down, and then do this here, so y'all can see better. If I can get this, there we go. All right. And there we go. So everything moves nice and freely, no issues, no binding. Everything's aligned right. The dots are facing forward here. Again, dots are facing forward. Everything is looking good. Alignment of the cap is all right and everything. And that's how you install basically the crank and the pistons of the 4AG. That's pretty much it there. Yeah, so my camera might be probably dying soon. Just want to say thanks for watching, and I'm gonna do part 4, whatever, 3, whatever, to do the rest of the rebuild here. I'll do it in another video. So thanks again for watching, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you at the track too. All right, bye.